Right now, your life is not being controlled by your intelligence, your talent, or your intentions. It is being controlled by your emotional reactions. Every impulsive word, every moment of anger, every silent resentment, they are shaping your reputation, your relationships, and your future. People who master their emotions move through chaos with quiet power. They don't need to shout. They don't need to prove. They simply decide and act. This audiobook will train you to regulate your internal storms, command your responses, and develop psychological dominance in everyday situations. Because the person who controls their reactions ultimately controls their life. Chapter 1. Your emotions are running your life, and you don't see it. You believe you are rational. You believe you make smart decisions. You believe you are in control. But most of the time, you are reacting. Reacting to tone. Reacting to stress. Reacting to fear. Reacting to pressure. And here is the uncomfortable truth. If you react unconsciously, you live unconsciously. Look at your last difficult day. Did you truly choose your behavior? Or did your emotions choose for you? Someone spoke sharply. You became defensive. A message was ignored. You became anxious. A plan failed. You became discouraged. You didn't decide. You reacted. That's the key. Emotional reactions feel natural. They feel justified. But natural does not mean useful. Justified does not mean intelligent. Most people don't ruin their lives through one catastrophic mistake. They ruin their lives through thousands of small emotional reactions. Impulsive spending after a stressful day. Quitting a project when motivation drops. Arguing to win instead of listening to understand. These reactions seem harmless in the moment, but they build patterns. Invisible patterns. And patterns shape destiny. You have a choice. But you only have a choice when you are aware. Right now, many of your behaviors are running on emotional autopilot. Autopilot is comfortable. Autopilot is fast. Autopilot is dangerous. Imagine driving a car while half asleep. You may stay on the road for a while, but eventually, you will crash. That is how emotional autopilot works. It keeps you moving, but not necessarily in the right direction. Let's make this real. At work, your mood decides your productivity more than your skill does. On confident days, you take initiative. On insecure days, you hesitate and overthink. Same person, same job, different emotional state, different results. In relationships, emotional reactions create distance. You interpret neutral behavior as rejection. You assume negative intent. You respond defensively. Then you wonder why connection feels fragile. It's not about intelligence. It's about emotional discipline. You don't need the permission to stay calm. You don't need perfect conditions to act with clarity. But first, you must see the pattern. Most people don't notice emotional patterns because they are too busy justifying them. I was tired. I was stressed. They made me angry. No. They triggered something that was already inside you. That's the key. Your reaction is your responsibility. This is not about blame. This is about power. When you take responsibility for your reactions, you take control of your future. If you react unconsciously, you live unconsciously. Say that again. Let it settle. If you react unconsciously, you live unconsciously. Think about impulsive decisions. Buying things you don't need to feel temporary relief. Sending messages you later regret. Walking away from opportunities because fear felt louder than logic. Emotions are not the enemy, but untrained emotions are. Untrained emotions exaggerate threats. Untrained emotions distort reality. Untrained emotions demand immediate action. And immediate action is often the wrong action. High performers understand this. They don't trust their first emotional impulse. They observe it. They question it. They decide whether it deserves action. That is emotional intelligence in motion. You have a choice. The choice is not whether you feel emotions. The choice is whether emotions control your behavior. Here is where transformation begins. Awareness. Awareness is not passive. Awareness is interruption. When you notice irritation rising, you interrupt the pattern. When anxiety starts telling stories, you interrupt the narrative. When anger demands reaction, you create space. That small space is where your power lives. Without awareness, there is no space. Without space, there is no choice. Without choice, there is no control. Start training awareness in simple moments. Notice your tone when you are tired. Notice your thoughts when you are criticized. Notice your body when stress appears. You are gathering data. You are studying yourself. This is not weakness. This is strategic self-observation. Elite performers review their performance. Emotionally intelligent people review their reactions. Ask yourself daily, when did I react instead of respond? Not to punish yourself, but to improve. Because improvement requires honesty. Most people want better results without better emotional habits. That never works. It's not about talent. It's not about luck. It's about regulation. If your mood controls your consistency, your success will always be unstable. If your emotions control your decisions, your life will always feel chaotic. That's the key. Consistency is emotional stability repeated over time. Imagine the advantage of being predictable, not boring, but reliable. Reliable under pressure. Reliable in conflict. Reliable in uncertainty. People trust that. Opportunities move toward that. Leadership grows from that. But emotional autopilot destroys reliability. Today you are motivated. Tomorrow you are discouraged. Next week you are indifferent. And your results mirror that instability. You have a choice. You can continue reacting, or you can begin observing. Observation slows reaction. Slowed reaction increases intelligence. Increased intelligence improves outcomes. This is a training process. At first, you will notice your reactions after they happen. Then you will notice them during. Eventually, you will notice them before. That is mastery. Awareness is the first interruption of emotional control. Never forget that. When you see the pattern, you weaken the pattern. When you weaken the pattern, you create freedom. Freedom from impulsive decisions. Freedom from unnecessary conflict. Freedom from emotional exhaustion. And this freedom is not theoretical. It shows up in your bank account, in your career growth, in your relationships, in your mental peace. Emotional awareness is not a soft skill. It is a survival skill in a high-pressure world. If you react unconsciously, you live unconsciously. But now, you are starting to see. You are starting to wake up. And awareness is only the beginning. Because once you see your reactions, you must learn how to control them. You are becoming conscious of the storm. Now you must learn how to stand still inside it. You are beginning to take your power back. And that leads us to the next discipline, the moment where control is actually created. You see the emotion. Now you must slow the reaction. Chapter 2. Pause before power. The skill that changes outcomes. Speed feels powerful. Immediate reactions feel strong. But in emotional situations, speed is usually weakness. Real power is not in reacting first. Real power is in choosing when to respond. Pause creates power. Most people never pause. They defend instantly. They argue instantly. They agree instantly. They panic instantly. And because they react instantly, they surrender control instantly. You have a choice. Between what happens to you and what you do next, there is a small gap. A tiny moment. Almost invisible. Inside that gap lives your authority. If you miss that gap, emotions take over. If you use that gap, intelligence takes over. That's the key. A single pause can change an entire outcome. Imagine a negotiation. One person speaks quickly, fills every silence, rushes to justify. The other listens, and pauses. Silence becomes pressure. Silence becomes influence. Silence becomes strategy. Pause creates power. Leaders understand this instinctively. Followers fear silence. Followers think they must always respond. Leaders know they must always decide first. You don't need their permission to take a breath. You don't need their approval to slow down. Slowing down is not weakness. It is emotional discipline. Look at conflict. Someone raises their voice, insults you, challenges your competence. Your nervous system fires instantly. Heart rate increases. Muscles tighten. Thoughts become sharp and defensive. This is biology. This is automatic. But automatic is not destiny. It's not about eliminating emotion. It's about delaying reaction. That delay is your training ground. Emotional reactions are fast but weak. Regulated responses are slow but decisive. Fast reactions feel satisfying in the moment, but they often create long-term regret. You send the angry message. You interrupt aggressively. You make a dramatic decision. Later, clarity returns, but the damage is already done. That's why pause creates power. Science supports this. When you react emotionally, the brain's survival system dominates. It prioritizes speed over accuracy. You are not thinking strategically. You are thinking defensively. But when you pause, even for a few seconds, another system activates. The rational, planning, evaluating system. Now you are no longer just feeling. You are choosing. That's the key. Choice only exists when reaction slows down. Let's make this practical. Next time someone criticizes you, do not answer immediately. Let the words land. Breathe once. Then respond. This small pause changes your tone. It changes your posture. It changes your credibility. People trust calm responses. They distrust emotional explosions. You have a choice. In meetings, pause before speaking. Not to appear mysterious, but to appear intentional. Intentional people command attention. Rushed people lose influence. Pause creates power. Even in everyday conversations, micropauses transform your presence. Instead of interrupting, listen fully. Instead of filling silence, allow it. Instead of reacting emotionally, observe internally. These are microdisciplines. Small actions repeated daily. But small disciplines create massive psychological shifts. Over time, people will notice something different about you. You don't get flustered easily. You don't over-explain. You don't chase validation. You respond when ready, not when pressured. That is emotional authority. It's not about dominance. It's about stability. And stability is rare. In stressful environments, emotional speed increases. Everyone talks faster, decides faster, judges faster. This is where trained individuals gain advantage. While others accelerate, you decelerate. While others panic, you observe. While others react, you decide. That's the key. The pause is not empty. The pause is preparation. Inside the pause, ask yourself, what outcome do I actually want? Will reacting help or harm me? What response reflects my discipline? These questions rewire your behavior. At first, pausing will feel uncomfortable. Silence will feel awkward. Your mind will scream, say something, do something. But discomfort is proof of growth. You are breaking emotional autopilot. You are training response over reaction. Pause creates power. Practice this in low-stakes situations first. When someone interrupts you, pause. When a message annoys you, pause. When plans change, pause. You are building emotional muscle. And like physical muscle, it strengthens through repetition. You don't become emotionally intelligent through theory. You become emotionally intelligent through trained behavior. It's not about personality. It's about discipline. Over time, the pause becomes natural, not forced, not dramatic, just calm. And calm people are dangerous in chaotic situations. They see what others miss. They decide while others hesitate. They influence without aggression. That is psychological power. Remember this. Your first reaction is often emotional. Your second response can be intelligent. You have a choice. Use the pause to access your second response. Use the pause to prevent regret. Use the pause to maintain dignity. Use the pause to protect your long-term goals. Because emotional mastery is not built in big moments. It is built in daily conversations. Micropauses create macro results. Pause creates power. Let that phrase become automatic in your mind. When tension rises, pause creates power. When fear appears, pause creates power. When anger pushes forward, pause creates power. Eventually, people will stop trying to provoke you. Because they cannot predict your reaction. Unpredictable reactions create chaos. Predictable calm creates respect. You are not trying to win every interaction. You are trying to control your internal state. That is the real victory. And once you master the pause, you begin to see another emotional trap clearly. You begin to realize that many reactions were never about reality. They were about interpretation. You have learned to slow down your response. Now you must learn to stop absorbing everything personally. Because emotional intelligence is not only about timing. It is also about perception. Chapter 3. Stop taking things personally. Most emotional suffering is not caused by reality. It is caused by interpretation. Someone speaks briefly, you assume they are upset with you. Someone gives feedback, you hear rejection. Someone seems distant, you feel abandoned. But here is the truth most people never accept. Not everything is about you. Say it again. Not everything is about you. This single realization can remove enormous emotional weight from your life. You have a choice. You can continue turning neutral events into personal attacks. Or you can learn to see situations clearly. That's the key. Most perceived attacks are projections. Projections of your insecurity. Projections of their stress. Projections of misunderstandings. But when emotions are untrained, projection feels like fact. Let's make this real. At work, your manager says, "This report needs improvement." Emotionally reactive thinking says, "They don't respect me. They think I'm incompetent. My position is at risk." But objective reality may be simple. The report needs improvement. Not everything is about you. When you personalize everything, you drain your own energy. You create unnecessary anxiety. You turn feedback into emotional battles. And emotional battles reduce performance. It's not about criticism. It's about emotional discipline. High performers seek correction. Emotionally reactive people seek validation. You don't need their permission to grow. You don't need constant praise to stay stable. Another example. A friend replies late to your message. Instead of assuming they are busy, your mind creates stories. They are ignoring me. They don't care anymore. I did something wrong. These narratives feel real, but they are emotional fiction. That's the key. Personalization is storytelling without evidence. And storytelling without evidence creates suffering. You have a choice. You can believe every emotional story your mind produces. Or you can pause and ask, what are the actual facts? Facts are simple. Stories are dramatic. Facts sound like, they replied late. They gave feedback. They look tired. Stories sound like, they are against me. They don't value me. I am being rejected. Emotionally intelligent people separate facts from interpretation. This separation creates freedom. Because once you see the difference, you stop reacting to illusions. Not everything is about you. Many people are fighting internal battles you cannot see. Their tone may reflect stress, not hostility. Their distance may reflect exhaustion, not rejection. But personalization makes you the center of every situation. And that is exhausting. It keeps your nervous system in constant alert mode. It keeps your mind scanning for threats. It keeps your confidence unstable. Emotional detachment is the solution. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means clarity. It means observing without immediately absorbing. You hear criticism. You evaluate it. You feel tension. You analyze it. You notice change. You stay grounded. That's emotional intelligence. It's not about suppressing feelings. It's about refusing to inflate them. Not everything is about you. Let this phrase interrupt your reactions. When embarrassment appears, not everything is about you. When fear of judgment rises, not everything is about you. When insecurity speaks loudly, not everything is about you. Over time, this mindset protects your mental energy. Because personalization is expensive. It costs focus. It costs sleep. It costs confidence. It makes small problems feel catastrophic. Imagine how much calmer you would feel if you stopped assuming negative intent. Imagine how much stronger you would become if you stopped seeking emotional reassurance from every interaction. You have a choice. You can train objectivity. Start asking better questions. What evidence supports my interpretation? What alternative explanation exists? Will this matter in 1 week? These questions weaken emotional exaggeration. And when exaggeration weakens, clarity grows. That's the key. Clarity allows strategy. When you are not emotionally entangled, you think better. You communicate better. You decide better. Leaders cannot afford personalization. They deal with pressure, disagreement, and criticism daily. If they took everything personally, they would collapse. Instead, they filter information. Useful feedback is applied. Emotional noise is ignored. You must learn this skill. Because life will not become less challenging. People will not become less opinionated. Situations will not become perfectly fair. Your strength must come from internal stability. Not everything is about you. The sooner you accept this, the sooner you regain control. Think about how many past conflicts were fueled by misunderstanding. How many relationships were strained by assumptions. How many opportunities were avoided because you feared judgment. Personalization shrinks your world. Detachment expands it. Detachment allows you to take risks, to ask questions, to receive feedback without emotional collapse. This is psychological maturity. And maturity is not about age. It is about regulation. It's not about being liked. It's about being grounded. Remember this. When you stop taking things personally, you stop giving strangers control over your emotions. That is real freedom. Freedom to act without fear of minor opinions. Freedom to grow without constant emotional turbulence. Freedom to stay calm in unpredictable environments. But to reach this freedom, you must train perception. You must see how quickly your mind creates emotional narratives. You must challenge those narratives. And you must replace them with disciplined thinking. You have learned to pause. You have learned to question personalization. Now you must go deeper. Because every strong reaction has a hidden message. Every emotional trigger reveals something unresolved inside you. If you want true mastery, you must stop avoiding discomfort and start studying it. Chapter 4. Emotional triggers reveal your hidden weaknesses. Most people run away from emotional discomfort. They distract themselves. They justify themselves. They blame others. But emotionally intelligent people do something different. They study their reactions. Because every strong reaction is a signal. Every trigger is information. Every emotional spike is revealing something unfinished inside you. Your reaction exposes your training. Say that again. Your reaction exposes your training. When anger explodes quickly, it shows a lack of regulation. When jealousy appears instantly, it reveals insecurity. When criticism destroys your confidence, it exposes fragile identity. This is not an insult. This is awareness. You have a choice. You can continue seeing triggers as external problems, or you can start seeing them as internal messages. That's the key. Triggers are not random. They are predictable. Certain words affect you more. Certain situations disturb you more. Certain people provoke you more. Why? Because they touch unresolved emotional patterns. Let's make this real. Someone at work gets promoted. Instead of feeling inspired, you feel irritated. You begin comparing. You begin doubting yourself. You begin questioning fairness. The promotion is not the trigger. Your insecurity is. Your reaction exposes your training. Another example. Your partner forgets something important. You respond with disproportionate anger. The forgotten detail is not the real issue. Your fear of being unimportant is. That's the key. Triggers amplify what already exists inside you. Emotionally reactive people suppress this truth. Emotionally intelligent people investigate it. It's not about eliminating emotions. It's about decoding them. Anger can mean boundaries were crossed. Jealousy can mean self-worth needs strengthening. Anxiety can mean uncertainty tolerance is low. Emotional discomfort becomes psychological data. Instead of asking, why are they doing this to me? Ask, why does this affect me so strongly? This question changes everything, because it shifts focus from blame to growth. You don't need the permission to work on yourself. You don't need perfect circumstances to become stronger. Triggers are training opportunities, but only if you are willing to observe without denial. Many people say they want emotional mastery. Few are willing to face emotional truth. Facing emotional truth requires humility. It requires admitting, my reaction was excessive. My fear influenced my behavior. My ego wanted validation. This honesty is uncomfortable, but discomfort is the doorway to discipline. Your reaction exposes your training. If your training is weak, reactions are chaotic. If your training is strong, reactions are measured. Think about high-pressure professionals, emergency responders, athletes, experienced leaders. They are not emotionless. They are trained. They feel stress. But stress does not control their decisions. That is the goal. Not emotional numbness. Emotional regulation. You have a choice. You can continue avoiding triggers, or you can start using them as mirrors. Mirrors do not lie. They show you what needs attention. If criticism triggers rage, confidence needs development. If rejection triggers despair, identity needs strengthening. If uncertainty triggers panic, resilience needs training. That's the key. Emotional triggers reveal the exact areas where growth is required. Now, let's talk about a practical tool. Trigger journaling. Simple, direct, powerful. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what triggered me today? How did I react? What was I actually afraid of? What would a disciplined response look like? Write it down. This is not therapy. This is performance analysis. Elite performers review mistakes without emotional drama. You must review emotional reactions the same way. Over time, patterns become visible. You notice recurring triggers, recurring fears, recurring insecurities. And once patterns are visible, they become trainable. Awareness weakens automatic behavior. That's the key. Reflection creates distance from emotion. Distance creates control. Control creates confidence. Confidence reduces future triggers. This is how emotional mastery compounds. It's not about winning one emotional battle. It's about building emotional consistency. Another powerful routine is trigger rehearsal. Visualize situations that usually disturb you. Imagine responding calmly. Imagine staying grounded. Imagine choosing discipline. Mental rehearsal prepares real behavior. Athletes use this. Speakers use this. Leaders use this. you can use it too. Because emotional strength is not a personality trait. It is a trained skill. Your reaction exposes your training. So train deliberately. Train patience. Train perspective. Train emotional endurance. Remember this. Life will continue to test your weak points. Not to punish you, but to reveal where preparation is missing. Triggers are not enemies. They are instructors. Each one is asking, are you ready to grow? If you ignore the lesson, the trigger returns. If you study the lesson, the trigger loses power. That is emotional evolution. Imagine how different your life would feel if situations that once disturbed you no longer controlled you. Imagine receiving criticism calmly, seeing others succeed without jealousy, facing uncertainty without panic. This is not fantasy. This is training. But training requires discipline. It's not about blaming your past. It's about strengthening your present. You have a choice. You can stay emotionally reactive, or you can become emotionally strategic. And strategy requires awareness of internal dialogue. Because behind every trigger, there is a voice in your mind shaping the emotional response. If you want deeper mastery, you must learn to control that voice. Because the way you talk to yourself determines the way you react to the world. Chapter 5. Control your inner dialogue before it controls you. You think your emotions are caused by situations. But most of the time, they are caused by your interpretation of those situations. An interpretation is shaped by one powerful force. Your inner dialogue. The loudest voice is inside you. Not your boss. Not your partner. Not society. Your own voice. The way you talk to yourself determines the way you experience reality. Two people face the same challenge. One says internally, I can handle this. The other says, I'm going to fail. Same situation. Different emotional outcome. That's the key. Emotional intensity is rarely about the event itself. It is about the meaning you assign to it. If your inner dialogue is negative, every obstacle feels heavier. Every delay feels personal. Every mistake feels permanent. You have a choice. You can let automatic thoughts run your emotional life, or you can train your internal language deliberately. Most people never question their self-talk. They treat it as truth. But self-talk is not truth. It is conditioning. Conditioning from past experiences. Conditioning from fear. Conditioning from comparison. And conditioning can be changed. The loudest voice is inside you. Listen to it carefully. When you make a mistake, what does it say? You always mess things up. You're not good enough. Others are better. These phrases are not facts. They are emotional amplifiers. They turn small problems into identity crises. That's why emotional mastery requires cognitive discipline. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about interpreting reality intelligently. This is where reframing begins. Reframing means changing the meaning without denying the event. Failure becomes feedback. Criticism becomes instruction. Delay becomes preparation. It's not about positive thinking. It's about useful thinking. That's the key. Imagine you present an idea and it gets rejected. Untrained inner dialogue says, I embarrassed myself. I should stay quiet next time. I'm not leadership material. Disciplined inner dialogue says, that approach didn't work. What can I improve? Next time, I will communicate more clearly. Same rejection, different future. One mindset shrinks, the other adapts. You don't need their permission to believe in your growth. You don't need applause to maintain internal stability, because stability comes from trained interpretation. The loudest voice is inside you. And if that voice is hostile, life feels like a constant battle. Negative self-talk increases stress hormones. It accelerates emotional reactions. It narrows perspective. Suddenly, everything feels urgent. Everything feels threatening. But when inner dialogue is disciplined, emotional storms weaken. You start responding instead of panicking, analyzing instead of assuming, acting instead of avoiding. This is emotional intelligence in practice. You have a choice. Next time something goes wrong, notice the first sentence in your mind. Do not accept it blindly. Challenge it. Ask, is this thought helping me or harming me? What is a more strategic interpretation? What would a calm, confident person tell themselves? These questions create mental space, and mental space reduces emotional intensity. That's the key. Emotions follow thoughts. Change the thought pattern, and the emotional pattern changes. Another powerful technique is neutral labeling. Instead of dramatic language, use precise language. Not "this is a disaster," but "this is inconvenient." Not "I'm terrible at this," but "I need more practice." Not "everyone is judging me," but "some people have opinions." Language shapes perception. Perception shapes reaction. This is why consistent inner language training is essential. Think of it like physical training. You don't build strength in one session. You build it through repetition. Emotional stability works the same way. Daily repetition of disciplined self-talk builds psychological resilience. Over time, your internal voice becomes calmer, more strategic, more supportive, and this changes how others perceive you. Because calm inner dialogue produces calm outer behavior. You stop overreacting. You stop over-explaining. You stop seeking constant reassurance. That is quiet confidence. Remember this. If you don't control your inner dialogue, it will control your reactions. If it controls your reactions, it controls your life. The loudest voice is inside you. Train it. Train it when you are tired. Train it when you are frustrated. Train it when you are uncertain. Because emotional discipline is not situational. It is identity-based. You are becoming someone who thinks clearly under pressure. Someone who reframes quickly. Someone who stays functional when others spiral emotionally. This is not about perfection. It is about direction. Each time you replace a destructive thought with a constructive one, you strengthen emotional mastery. Each time you interpret a challenge strategically, you build internal authority. And internal authority leads to external consistency. But there is another truth you must understand. Even with disciplined thinking, emotions will still fluctuate. Motivation will rise and fall. Confidence will rise and fall. Energy will rise and fall. If you rely on feelings alone, your performance will remain unstable. So the next step is deeper. You must learn to act correctly even when you don't feel ready. Because emotional intelligence is not just about thinking better. It is about behaving with discipline regardless of mood. Chapter 6. Emotional discipline beats motivation every time. Motivation feels powerful. Motivation feels inspiring. Motivation feels like the fuel of success. But motivation is unreliable. Some days you feel driven. Some days you feel tired. Some days you feel unstoppable. Some days you feel nothing at all. If your performance depends on how you feel, your results will always be unstable. That's the truth most people avoid. Discipline is emotional stability in motion. Say that again. Discipline is emotional stability in motion. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is behavioral. Motivation says, I'll act when I feel ready. Discipline says, I act because it is required. That's the key. High performers do not wait for emotional permission. They create systems that function regardless of mood. Athletes train when they are tired. Professionals show up when they are stressed. Leaders make decisions when they feel uncertain. They are not emotionless. They are regulated. You have a choice. You can wait for the perfect emotional state, or you can act correctly in imperfect emotional conditions. Waiting feels comfortable, but comfort delays progress. Real growth happens when action continues despite resistance. Imagine waking up without motivation. Your mind says, rest today. Your emotions say, you deserve a break. But discipline asks one question: what is the next correct action? Not the easiest action, not the most exciting action, the correct action. That mindset changes everything. Because success is rarely built through emotional highs. It is built through consistent, neutral execution. Discipline is emotional stability in motion. Think about burnout. Many professionals experience it. Energy drops. Focus weakens. Confidence fluctuates. Emotionally reactive individuals withdraw completely. They stop performing. They stop trying. Disciplined individuals adjust pace, but they don't stop. They simplify tasks. They reduce unnecessary effort, but they maintain forward movement. This is emotional neutrality. Neutrality means you are not controlled by excitement or discouragement. You act steadily. That is a performance advantage. Because most people only act when they feel inspired. And inspiration is temporary. You don't need their permission to stay consistent. You don't need applause to maintain discipline. You need structure. Structure protects you from emotional volatility. Let's make this practical. Create non-negotiable routines. Small actions that happen daily regardless of mood. For example, work for 30 focused minutes before checking distractions. Exercise for 10 minutes even on low energy days. Review priorities every morning before reacting to messages. These routines reduce emotional decision-making. Because decision fatigue increases emotional instability. The fewer emotional decisions you make, the more stable your behavior becomes. That's the key. Another powerful system is the minimum standard. On difficult days, don't aim for perfection. Aim for completion. Not maximum performance, minimum consistency. Write one page. Make one call. Solve one problem. Progress continues. And progress builds confidence. Confidence reduces emotional resistance. This is how discipline compounds. Discipline is emotional stability in motion. Remember that phrase when motivation disappears. Because motivation will disappear. There will be days when you doubt your direction. Days when comparison weakens your belief. Days when fatigue blurs your clarity. These are not signals to stop. They are signals to rely on systems instead of feelings. High performers trust structure more than emotion. They schedule action. They track behavior. They measure effort. Emotion becomes background noise. You have a choice. You can let emotional weather dictate your productivity, or you can become internally climate controlled. Calm in chaos. Steady in uncertainty. Functional in discomfort. This is emotional discipline. Another technique is action countdown. When resistance appears, count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then move. No negotiation. No overthinking. This interrupts emotional hesitation. Action creates momentum. Momentum reduces fear. That's the key. Emotionally reactive people wait to feel confident before acting. Disciplined people act to create confidence. Understand this clearly. Feelings follow behavior more often than behavior follows feelings. You feel better after working. You feel calmer after solving problems. You feel stronger after facing discomfort. But if you wait to feel strong first, you may wait forever. Discipline is emotional stability in motion. Over time, this mindset changes identity. You stop describing yourself as unmotivated. You start seeing yourself as reliable. Reliable to your goals. Reliable to your commitments. Reliable under pressure. This reliability builds trust. Trust from others. Trust from opportunities. Trust from yourself. And self-trust is powerful. Because when you trust yourself to act correctly regardless of mood, fear loses influence. Imagine how different your life would be if your performance no longer depended on emotional highs. Imagine waking up and moving forward automatically. Not because you feel excited, but because you are trained. That is mastery. But there is still one emotional force that can destroy discipline quickly. Anger. Anger can erase logic in seconds. It can destroy relationships in minutes. It can ruin reputations in moments. If you want complete emotional intelligence, you must learn to transform anger into controlled energy. Chapter 7. Master anger or be controlled by it. Anger feels powerful. Anger feels justified. Anger feels like strength. But uncontrolled anger is one of the fastest ways to lose control of your life. Uncontrolled anger is borrowed regret. You feel powerful for a moment. Then you pay for it later. You send the message you shouldn't have sent. You say the words you cannot take back. You make the decision that damages long-term trust. And when clarity returns, regret arrives with it. That's the key. Anger is not the enemy. But unmanaged anger is destructive. You have a choice. You can let anger control your behavior, or you can learn to control anger's direction. Because anger is energy. Strong energy. Explosive energy. Raw energy. If you suppress it, it builds pressure. If you express it impulsively, it causes damage. But if you redirect it, it becomes power. This is emotional intelligence in motion. Think about how many opportunities are lost because of anger. A talented employee argues aggressively with leadership. A skilled entrepreneur destroys partnerships with emotional outbursts. A capable professional gains a reputation for being difficult. Skill is not enough. Emotional regulation determines sustainability. Uncontrolled anger is borrowed regret. Say that phrase whenever you feel heat rising inside you. Because anger escalates quickly. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your thoughts become extreme. You move into survival mode. In survival mode, you don't think strategically. You react defensively. And defensive reactions often create long-term problems. It's not about eliminating anger. It's about delaying expression. Pause creates power, especially with anger. When anger rises, your first task is not to respond. Your first task is to stabilize. You don't need their permission to step back. You don't need to win every confrontation immediately. Winning emotionally often means losing strategically. That's the key. Let's talk about tactical cooling strategies. First, physical interruption. Change your environment. Step outside. Walk. Wash your face. Move your body. Physical movement reduces emotional intensity. Because anger is not only mental, it is biochemical. Second, breathing control. Slow inhale. Long exhale. Repeat. Breathing tells your nervous system that danger has passed. This lowers emotional pressure. Third, delay communication. Never respond to important messages while angry. Write the response if you must. But don't send it. Time creates perspective. Perspective prevents regret. Uncontrolled anger is borrowed regret. Another powerful technique is labeling the emotion. Instead of saying, "I am angry," say, "I am noticing anger." This small linguistic shift creates distance. You become the observer, not the explosion. Observation weakens impulsivity. That's emotional discipline. Now let's talk about redirection. Anger contains information. It may signal injustice. It may signal violated boundaries. It may signal unmet expectations. Use that information constructively. Instead of attacking a person, address the issue calmly. Instead of quitting impulsively, create a strategic plan. Instead of exploding verbally, channel the energy into productive action. Many high achievers use anger as fuel. Fuel for training harder. Fuel for building better systems. Fuel for proving resilience. They don't waste anger on emotional drama. They invest it in disciplined behavior. You have a choice. You can waste anger on momentary expression, or you can convert anger into long-term progress. Remember this. Emotionally reactive anger feels powerful. Emotionally regulated anger creates results. Another essential skill is recognizing anger triggers early. Notice physical signals: tight jaw, raised voice, rapid thoughts. These are warning lights. Do not ignore them. Intervene early. Because once anger reaches peak intensity, logic becomes weak. That's the key. Mastery happens at the beginning of the emotional rise, not at the explosion. Practice cooling before crisis. In daily life, train patience. Wait an extra second before responding. Allow others to finish speaking. Accept minor inconveniences calmly. These small trainings build anger tolerance. Tolerance builds composure. Composure builds reputation. And reputation creates opportunity. People trust those who remain stable under pressure. They avoid those who become unpredictable. Uncontrolled anger damages credibility. It makes others question your judgment, your maturity, your reliability. You may be intelligent. You may be talented. But if anger controls your behavior, others will hesitate to trust you. Because emotional stability is a form of safety. You must become safe to work with, safe to communicate with, safe to rely on. This is not weakness. This is strength with direction. Uncontrolled anger is borrowed regret. Let that phrase guide you. Let it interrupt impulsive reactions. Let it remind you of long-term consequences. Over time, you will notice something powerful. Situations that once triggered explosions will no longer control you. You will feel anger, but you will stay grounded. You will feel pressure, but you will stay strategic. You will feel injustice, but you will act intelligently. This is emotional mastery. But there is another level of control you must develop. Because sometimes, even when anger is regulated, emotional involvement still clouds judgment. You may remain calm, but still feel entangled. To reach higher clarity, you must learn the discipline of emotional distance. You must learn when to care and when to step back. Because true intelligence requires perspective. Chapter 8. Emotional detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. Many people misunderstand emotional detachment. They think detachment means indifference. They think detachment means lack of care. They think detachment means becoming cold. That belief keeps them trapped in emotional chaos. Because the truth is simple. Clarity requires distance. Say it again. Clarity requires distance. When you are too emotionally involved, your perception becomes distorted. You exaggerate risks. You underestimate consequences. You confuse feelings with facts. And confused thinking leads to poor decisions. You have a choice. You can stay emotionally entangled in every situation. Or you can learn to step back and see the full picture. That's the key. Detachment is not about caring less. It is about seeing more. Think about leadership. A leader must make difficult decisions. Sometimes they must reject ideas. Sometimes they must change direction. Sometimes they must let people go. If they become emotionally overwhelmed by every reaction, they lose effectiveness. They start avoiding necessary action. They delay decisions. They protect comfort instead of progress. Clarity requires distance. Distance creates perspective. Perspective improves judgment. Judgment protects long-term goals. Another example is financial risk. Emotionally reactive investors panic during market drops. They sell impulsively. They follow fear. Disciplined investors step back. They analyze data. They wait for strategic opportunities. Same market, different emotional distance, different outcomes. It's not about intelligence. It's about regulation. You don't need the permission to step back mentally. You don't need to absorb every emotional wave around you. Because emotional absorption is exhausting. Some people believe empathy means feeling everything others feel. That is not empathy. That is emotional overload. Empathy understands. Absorption suffers. That's the key. Emotionally intelligent individuals can acknowledge others' feelings without drowning in them. They listen calmly. They respond thoughtfully. They remain grounded internally. This stability allows them to help effectively. If you become overwhelmed by others' emotions, you lose clarity. And without clarity, you cannot solve problems. Clarity requires distance. Let's talk about strategic emotional distance. This does not mean isolation. It means choosing when to engage deeply and when to observe. In conflict, step back before reacting. In negotiation, detach from immediate outcomes. In personal setbacks, observe the lesson instead of dramatizing the loss. Detachment protects long-term vision. When you are too attached to short-term emotions, you sacrifice future opportunities. For example, someone criticizes your work publicly. If you react defensively, you damage credibility. If you withdraw emotionally, you lose growth potential. But if you detach, you analyze calmly. What is useful here? What can I improve? What outcome do I truly want? That mindset transforms tension into progress. You have a choice. You can personalize every challenge, or you can treat challenges as data. Data does not offend you. Data informs you. Emotionally detached thinking is strategic thinking. It allows you to stay functional when others panic. It allows you to communicate clearly under pressure. It allows you to take calculated risks without emotional paralysis. That is psychological advantage. Clarity requires distance. Remember this when emotions become intense. Step back internally. Observe your thoughts. Observe your physical reactions. Observe the situation objectively. This internal observation creates space. Space reduces impulsivity. Reduced impulsivity increases intelligence. That's emotional mastery. Another important benefit of detachment is energy conservation. Emotional entanglement drains mental strength. You replay conversations. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You carry emotional tension into unrelated areas of life. Detachment stops this cycle. You process the situation. You extract the lesson. You move forward. No unnecessary emotional baggage. Over time, this builds resilience. You become harder to disturb, harder to manipulate, harder to distract from your goals. This is not arrogance. This is discipline. High achievers are not emotionless. They are selective. They choose where to invest emotional energy. They care deeply about purpose. They care strategically about outcomes. They do not waste energy on minor disturbances. You must learn this. Because the modern world is full of emotional noise, opinions, criticism, comparison, uncertainty. If you absorb everything, you lose direction. Clarity requires distance. Practice this daily. When tension rises, step back. When excitement rises, step back. When fear rises, step back. Balanced distance keeps perception stable. Stable perception leads to stable action. And stable action builds trust in yourself. But even with emotional detachment, life will still present unpredictable pressure, unexpected crises, sudden change, external chaos. Detachment gives clarity, but resilience gives endurance. To maintain emotional intelligence in a volatile world, you must build psychological immunity. You must train yourself to stay calm not only in small challenges, but also in major disruptions. Chapter 9. Build psychological immunity to external chaos. The world is not stable. Plans change. People disappoint. Crises appear without warning. If your emotional state depends on external conditions, your life will feel like a constant storm. But there is another way to live. Calm is a trained response. Say that again. Calm is a trained response. Most people believe calmness is personality. They think some are naturally composed and others are naturally reactive. That is not true. Calmness is built through exposure, through discipline, through repetition under pressure. You have a choice. You can avoid difficult situations and remain emotionally fragile. Or you can train resilience and become psychologically stable. That's the key. Psychological immunity works like physical immunity. The body becomes stronger through controlled stress. The mind becomes stronger the same way. Avoiding all discomfort makes you sensitive. Facing discomfort strategically makes you durable. Think about sudden change. A project collapses. A job opportunity disappears. A financial setback occurs. Emotionally reactive individuals panic. They freeze. They make impulsive decisions. Emotionally trained individuals stabilize first. They slow their breathing. They assess reality. They prioritize action. Same crisis. Different internal response. Different outcome. Calm is a trained response. Resilience does not mean absence of fear. It means functionality despite fear. You continue thinking. You continue communicating. You continue acting. This is emotional toughness. Not aggression. Not denial. But controlled endurance. Let's talk about criticism. In a chaotic world, opinions are constant. Judgment is constant. Comparison is constant. If every negative comment destabilizes you, your progress will stall. You don't need their permission to stay grounded. You don't need universal approval to move forward. Psychological immunity filters emotional noise. Useful feedback is processed. Destructive negativity is ignored. That is strategic stability. Another powerful training method is stress adaptation routines. Deliberately place yourself in mildly uncomfortable situations. Speak up in meetings. Try new challenges. Set deadlines that require focused effort. These controlled exposures teach your nervous system that pressure is survivable. Over time, anxiety reduces. Confidence increases. Response time improves. That's the key. Resilience is not built in comfort zones. It is built at the edge of difficulty. Athletes understand this. They train in fatigue. They practice under pressure. They simulate competition stress. So when real pressure appears, it feels familiar. You must apply the same principle emotionally. Expose yourself to manageable stress. Handle conflict calmly. Make decisions with incomplete information. Accept uncertainty without emotional collapse. Calm is a trained response. Another important routine is recovery discipline. Resilience is not constant tension. It is balanced cycles. After intense effort, you must reset. Sleep properly. Move your body. Allow mental silence. Recovery protects emotional endurance. Without recovery, even strong individuals become reactive. That's the key. Psychological immunity requires both exposure and restoration. Now consider sudden public pressure. A presentation goes wrong. Technology fails. Unexpected questions arise. Untrained individuals panic. Their voice shakes. Their thoughts scatter. Trained individuals slow down. They pause. They simplify. They continue. Functionality under pressure creates credibility. And credibility creates opportunity. Because the world trusts those who remain stable in unpredictable moments. You have a choice. You can let chaos define your emotional state. Or you can define your emotional state regardless of chaos. This mindset transforms uncertainty into challenge. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask, "How can I stay effective right now?" Effectiveness becomes your priority. Not comfort. Not approval. Not emotional perfection. Just effectiveness. Calm is a trained response. Repeat that when life becomes overwhelming. When plans collapse, calm is a trained response. When criticism intensifies, calm is a trained response. When fear appears, calm is a trained response. Over time, this repetition rewires identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone easily disturbed. You start seeing yourself as someone adaptable. Adaptability is power. It allows you to move forward while others hesitate. It allows you to think while others panic. It allows you to lead while others seek direction. This is emotional intelligence at a high level. Not just awareness, not just regulation, but resilience. Resilience means you recover quickly. You learn quickly. You stabilize quickly. And stability under chaos makes you valuable. In business, in relationships, in leadership, people gravitate toward emotional anchors. They trust those who remain calm when uncertainty spreads. You are becoming that anchor. But one final transformation remains. You have trained awareness. You have trained the pause. You have trained perception. You have trained discipline. You have trained resilience. Now it is time to make emotional mastery permanent. Not a technique you use sometimes, but an identity you embody daily. Chapter 10. Become the person who cannot be easily disturbed. Emotional intelligence begins as a skill, a technique, a conscious effort. But true mastery happens when emotional control becomes identity. Not something you remember to use, something you naturally embody. This is the final transformation. You are becoming the person who cannot be easily disturbed. Say it clearly. I am emotionally governed. Not emotionally perfect. Not emotionally numb. Emotionally governed. That means you feel deeply, but you act deliberately. You experience pressure, but you remain stable. You face uncertainty, but you stay functional. That's the key. Most people live emotionally exposed. Their mood changes with the weather. Their confidence changes with opinions. Their behavior changes with stress. They are constantly disturbed. And when you are easily disturbed, you are easily controlled. You have a choice. You can remain emotionally reactive, or you can build emotional identity. Identity is powerful, because identity removes negotiation. When discipline is identity, you don't debate whether to act, you act. When calmness is identity, you don't struggle to stabilize, you stabilize. When emotional regulation is identity, you don't chase control, you are control. I am emotionally governed. Repeat that phrase until it feels natural. Because repetition builds belief. Belief builds behavior. Behavior builds reputation. And reputation shapes opportunity. Think about quiet confidence. It does not need loud words. It does not need constant validation. It does not need dramatic displays of strength. Quiet confidence comes from predictable composure. People know how you will respond. They know you will not panic easily. They know you will not explode impulsively. Predictability builds trust. Trust builds influence. That's the key. Long-term emotional regulation is not just about personal peace. It is about social power. Emotionally stable individuals are given responsibility. They are trusted with leadership. They are chosen during crisis. Not because they are the loudest, but because they are the most reliable. You don't need their permission to become stable. You don't need a perfect environment to train emotional mastery. You need commitment. Commitment to awareness. Commitment to pause. Commitment to disciplined thinking. Commitment to resilience. This commitment changes how others see you. Imagine entering a tense meeting. Voices are raised. Stress is visible. Uncertainty fills the room. You remain calm. You listen. You think. You speak with precision. Suddenly, attention shifts toward you. Because calmness attracts authority. Authority is not about control over others. It is about control over yourself. I am emotionally governed. This identity protects you. It protects your relationships. It protects your career. It protects your mental energy. When others react impulsively, you stay strategic. When others become defensive, you stay objective. When others panic, you stabilize. Over time, this creates a powerful life advantage. Opportunities move toward stability. People seek guidance from composure. Influence grows from consistency. Remember this clearly. Emotional mastery compounds. Each regulated reaction strengthens your identity. Each calm decision increases your credibility. Each disciplined response builds inner confidence. Confidence that does not depend on applause. Confidence that does not collapse under pressure. That is real self-trust. And self-trust changes everything. You stop fearing difficult conversations. You stop avoiding uncertainty. You stop overreacting to minor disturbances. Because your internal state becomes steady. It's not about controlling the world. It's about controlling your response to the world. That's the final lesson. Emotional control equals life control. Your reactions determine your direction. Your composure determines your opportunities. Your discipline determines your future. You have trained awareness. You have trained pause. You have trained perception. You have trained resilience. Now you must live this training daily. Not occasionally. Not when convenient. Daily. When anger rises, govern it. When fear appears, act anyway. When criticism comes, learn calmly. When chaos surrounds you, remain grounded. I am emotionally governed. Let this become your internal standard. Because the person who cannot be easily disturbed cannot be easily manipulated, cannot be easily distracted, cannot be easily defeated. This is emotional intelligence at its highest level. Not theory, not motivation, identity. And from this identity, a different life emerges. A life of stability, a life of strategic decisions, a life of quiet psychological power. You are no longer reacting unconsciously. You are no longer controlled by emotional storms. You are choosing. And when you consistently choose disciplined responses, you begin to control not only your reactions, but the trajectory of your entire life. You have now seen the truth most people avoid. Your emotions were never the enemy. Your lack of control was. Every chapter has shown you the same lesson from different angles. Pause before reacting. Observe before judging. Decide before acting. Emotional intelligence is not about being soft. It is about being precise. It is about choosing your response when others surrender to impulse. From this moment forward, you must train yourself in real time. When anger rises, pause. When fear appears, act anyway. When criticism hits, stay centered. The world respects emotional stability because it is rare. Opportunities trust calm minds. Leadership belongs to those who remain composed when others collapse. Now the challenge is simple, and it is yours alone. For the next 30 days, refuse unconscious reactions. Refuse emotional excuses. Refuse to give your power away. Control your reactions. And you will quietly begin to control your entire life.